Savitri has met the mother of sorrows and the mother of might, and now she's come to this beautiful high space which is the seat of the mother of light. And she says like the others, she says, "Oh, Savitri, I am thy secret soul." And then she tells what is her role. "I have come down to the wounded, desolate earth to heal her pangs, to bring healing, and to lull her heart." That's what we do with a fretful baby. We rock it until it becomes peaceful and happy again. And lay her head upon the lap, I think this is the lap of the Universal Mother, that she may dream of God and know His peace. And in that beautiful dream, draw the harmony of higher spheres, those supraphysical worlds where there is more harmony than in our troubled material world, to draw those harmonies into the rhythm of Earth's rude, troubled days. Here we are living quite peacefully, but still the days are rude and troubled, and unpleasant things happen everywhere. So the Mother of Light says, "I show to her, to the earth, the figures of bright gods, and bring strength and solace to her struggling life. High things that now are only words and forms, I reveal to her in the body of their power. I am peace that steals into man's war-worn breast. Amid the rain of hell his acts create, a hostel where heaven's messengers can lodge. I am charity with the kindly hands that bless. I am silence mid the noisy tramp of life. I am knowledge pouring on her cosmic map. In the anomalies of the human heart, where good and evil are close bedfellows, and light is by darkness dogged at every step, where his largest knowledge is an ignorance, I am the power that labors towards the best, and works for God, and looks up towards the heights. I make even sin and error stepping stones, and all experience a long march towards light. Out of the inconscient I build consciousness, and lead through death to reach immortal life. Many are God's forms by which He grows in man. They stamp His thoughts and deeds with divinity, uplift the stature of the human clay, or slowly transmute it into heaven's gold. He is the good for which men fight and die. He is the war of right with Titan wrong. He is freedom rising deathless from her pyre. He is valor, guarding still the desperate pass, or lone and erect on the shattered barricade, or a sentinel in the dangerous echoing night. He is the crown of the martyr burned in flame, and the glad resignation of the saint, and courage indifferent to the wounds of time, and the hero's might wrestling with death and fate. He is wisdom incarnate on a glorious throne, and the calm autocracy of the sage's rule. He is the high and solitary thought, aloof above the ignorant multitude. He is the prophet's voice, the sight of the seer. He is beauty, nectar of the passionate soul. He is the truth by which the spirit lives. He is the riches of the spiritual vast, poured out in healing streams on indigent life. He is eternity, lured from hour to hour. He is infinity in a little space. He is immortality in the arms of death. These powers I am, and at my call they come. Thus, slowly I lift man's soul nearer the light. Okay, Dhanalakshmi.
I show to her the figures of bright birds and bring strength and solace to her struggling life. High things that now are only words and forms, I reveal to her in the body of their power.
So this her is the earth, no? The wounded, desolate earth. And the Mother of Light brings hope and strength to the earth spirit, showing her the figures of bright gods. This brings strength and solace. Solace is bringing comfort and hope to her struggling life. And she says, I reveal to her in the body of their power things, high things, that now are only words and forms. We hear about human unity, freedom, liberty, equality, no? But these are high things that are only words and forms, perhaps in our imagination. But the Mother of Light is able to show them to the Earth Spirit in the form, in the body of their power. Ati.
I am peace that steals into man's war-worn breast. Amid the rain of hell his act creates. A hostel where heaven's messengers can lodge. I am charity with the kindly hands that bliss. I am silence mid the noise tramp of life. I am knowledge pouring on her cosmic map.
So, peace. It's a very surprising thing that sometimes when we're in great distress, we're in conflict and in trouble, somehow peace comes into our heart. That's the touch of the Mother of Light. Peace that just steals in. We don't know where it has come from. Into this war-worn breast, all the terrible conflicts and clashes that we human beings experience. And she says, it's nice we have this line, I didn't know this line, a hostel.
Yes.
These are heaven's messengers.
Yes, a hostel where heaven's messengers can lodge. Those bright beings who bring us messages from the higher levels of consciousness, coming into this reign of hell that the ignorance and ill will of human beings creates. Charity. Charity. Nowadays it's not a very fashionable virtue, but charity, it's a kind of selfless generosity. Charity with kindly hands. If you give something in a selfless way, not expecting anything in return, that you can give a blessing. And then there's all the noisy tramp, the many feet and voices of the human world. But in the heart of that tramp of life, there's a silence. And sometimes with our inner ear, we can become aware of it. That also is the touch of the Mother of Light. And she takes in the human mind, she takes the form of knowledge. And here he uses this word pouring. It means looking very, very closely to see into the detail. Even if the words of the cosmic map or the shapes are difficult to understand, knowledge always wants to go in and find out what is the truth there. It's one of our great mental powers. Suresh.
In the anomalous place of the human heart, where good and evil are close bedfellows, and light is by darkness dark but very still. There is largest knowledge is an ignorance. I am the power that labors towards the best and works for God and looks up towards the high.
Yes. In the anomalies of the human heart is ruled by opposites, things that have different laws, contradictions. So in our human hearts, good and evil, he says, are close bedfellows. They share a bed, and it's maybe a small bed. They have to be very close to each other. It's very difficult. We don't know how to separate them. We do things intending good, and then it doesn't work out in the way we expected or wished. Even light, she's the Mother of Light, but in our human consciousness, light is dogged by darkness at every step. A good dog will follow at your heels. He won't run here and there. No, he will stay with you. But there's this kind of shadow of darkness that is always following the light. He's always there, like a faithful dog. And our largest human knowledge is still an ignorance. We never can see the full picture. We always only see parts. So in this situation, in the human heart, where all these contradictions rule, she says, I am the power that labors towards the best, that makes an effort to make the best possible, even if there are always disadvantages and imperfections. But still, that's what she wants to bring about, to the best, because she's working for God, for the divine, and looking up towards the heights. Bärbel.
And even sin and error, stepping stones, and all experience a long march towards light. Out of the inconscient, I will consciousness, and lead through death to reach immortal life.
So because of these anomalies in the human heart, we can't help making mistakes. To err is human. Error, mistakes, we are making all the time. And some of those mistakes we feel separate us from God. They give us a feeling of having done something disastrously wrong. We feel that we've sinned. No? But very comfortingly here, the Mother of Light says that I make even sin and error stepping stones in this long march towards the light. Human beings are on a journey to the higher light and the spiritual consciousness. And even those things that we do wrong and those mistakes that we make, they are stepping stones in that long journey. And she says, out of the inconscient, our base here in the material world is the inconscient. You know, this matter that, so far as we know, doesn't have any awareness. But out of that, out of all this sea and sky and stone, she is building consciousness, first in very simple life forms, and then in more and more complex forms, reaching mental awareness and even beyond to the spiritual awareness. And it's the Mother of Light who leads us through death to reach immortal life. We may have to die again and again and again on our journey, leave one body and move into another one. But the journey is leading towards immortal life. And then she starts to describe the ways that the divine expresses himself in human life. She gives this long list of the qualities through which the divine is expressed in human life. Would you like to read?
Many are God's forms by which he grows in man. They stamp his thoughts and deeds with divinity, uplift the stature of the human clay, or slowly transmutes it into heaven's gold.
Thank you. So she says there are many forms in which the divine grows more and more, greater and greater, in individual human beings. These divine forms make a stamp, they leave a mark on the thoughts and deeds, the actions of the human beings. They leave a mark of something which is more than human, which is divine. They lift up the stature of the human clay. Our human clay is our material nature. But through these forms of God that express themselves through human beings. That human clay gets lifted up into something greater than just mud. And they may, in time, slowly transmute it, change its substance, so that it's not mud anymore, it's not clay, it is gold, the gold of the higher levels of consciousness. And then he gives this list of qualities. Bhavana.
He is the good for which men fight and die. He is the war of right with right and wrong. He is freedom rising deathless from the fire. He is valor guarding still the desperate path, or lone and erect on the shattered barricade, or a sentinel in the dangerous echoing night.
Yes. So one of the ways in which human beings progress on their journey towards divinity, it is by identifying something which they recognize as good and being ready to sacrifice their lives for that. They're ready to fight and die for what they believe to be good. Another form of that expression is the idea of fighting for what is true and right against Titan wrong. Titan is superhuman, but it's also a very, very enlarged ego, which is ruthless and cruel. So sometimes there are forms of human behavior we feel have to be combated because they represent this Titan wrong. If we fight for the good and the true, we tend often to identify it with freedom. And there's something remarkable about freedom, that often it seems to be defeated. We see that terrible things happen, and human beings are not free. They have to suffer all kinds of oppression. And yet, eventually, that sacrifice that human beings make for the sake of freedom triumphs. And here he expresses that by saying, freedom rising deathless from her pyre. The pyre is the fire where we burn a dead body. But there's supposed to be a bird, the phoenix, which lives, I don't know, it lives a long time, and then itself, it lights a fire and destroys its body and arises again in a fresh, new body, the phoenix. Yeah. So freedom is like that. Mother has spoken very movingly about this in connection with the Indian independence movement. She said that she remembers in the looking into a book where there were photographs of some of these people who lost their lives in the struggle for the freedom of India. And she said it was so clear that these apparently dead bodies lying here in the road, they will be victorious and their sacrifice will bear its fruit. So that's freedom rising deathless from her pyre. And the divine also takes the form of valor, of courage, selfless courage, guarding still the desperate pass. We think of the Spartan soldiers at Thermopylae. There were only a very few of them. They had to fight the Persians, but they went on even when it seemed absolutely hopeless. And there's an incident like that in Indian history, the story of Baji Prabhu, which Aurobindo has written a poem about, where the Marathas were fighting the Muslims, the conquerors, the Muslim emperors, and it was something similar, you know, fighting to the last man in order to save their country. So valor, what courage and determination it takes to go on guarding the desperate pass, the narrow place. If you go on long enough, perhaps you will be victorious. Or on the barricade. This sounds like the French Revolution or other revolutions where the ordinary people block the streets and man the barricades in order to resist the authorities. No? And sometimes there might be one hero who's leading all the others, standing up there on the top of the barricade as an example to the others. Or a sentinel. This is another kind of guard who has to be on guard, always alert, even in the dangerous, echoing night, to warn if some enemies are coming. So these are different forms of courage and determination, bravery in the war of good against evil, truth against falsehood. You would read, Yoka?
He is the crow of the meteorite burned in flame, and the glad resignation of the sand, and courage indifferent to the winds of time, and the hero's might wrestling with deep and fate.
So the martyrs, this is a word it's used in Christianity. Now, of course, the Islamic fighters are using this word also. It's somebody who dies for a sacred cause. No? So those martyrs, sometimes they were burned alive, but there's a divine crown for them. The mark of God's approval and love. But another form that the divine takes in human beings is in the glad resignation of the saint. Resignation, again, is a quality that's valued in Christianity. It's this patient, faithful acceptance of God's will, whatever difficulties and sufferings it might bring to you. And then contrasted with that, the power, the strength of the hero who is wrestling with death and fate, as Savitri is going to have to wrestle with death and fate later on. Courage, indifferent to the wounds of time. However many wounds you receive, you still keep your courage and are ready to go on fighting. Aurobindo speaks of that in one place, about the inner wounds which the avatar has to suffer. The inner wounds that are slow to heal, but still that doesn't prevent him from doing his work. At the back, yeah.
He is wisdom incarnate on a glorious throne, and the calm autocracy of the sage's rule. He is the high and solitary thought, aloof above the ignorant multitude. He is the prophet's voice, the sight of the seer.
Thank you. So this is another kind of way in which the divine expresses himself in human beings, no? As wisdom incarnate on a glorious throne. There have been some wonderful rulers like that, who seem to embody the principle of wisdom and just rule, and who can make a whole nation of people happy and progressing. And then there's another kind of rule which is accepted traditionally here in India, which is the rule not of the king, but the rule of the sage, the wise man, the one who has a higher knowledge. But then there's also those people who hardly involve themselves with human life, but they are working with their minds, thinking high thoughts, reaching high visions, the high and solitary thought, aloof above the ignorant multitude. Makes me think for a moment of Isaac Newton, who was a very, very solitary man and hardly could relate to other people at all, but yet he had this power of thought that brought great illumination to generations. And the Lord expresses himself also through the voice of the prophet, who looks into the future, sees how things are, and gives messages and advice to the people. Or the seer, who sees with a more than human sight, the great rishis. You will read?
He is beauty, nectar of the passionate soul. He is the tree by which the spirit lives. He is the riches of the spiritual fast, poured out in healing streams on indigent life. He is eternity, flowing from hour to hour. He is infinity in a little space. He is immortality in the arms of death. These powers I have, and at my call they come.
Thank you. Yes. So one of the ways the Lord expresses himself is as beauty. I remember when one of our first permanent buildings was opened here in Auroville, the last school building in Aspiration in 1971. The mother gave a handwritten message. She said, in the physical, the divine expresses himself as beauty. And we really had the feeling this is the most beautiful building on earth at that time. Of course, he expresses himself also in the beauty of flowers, in the beauty of the sky, all different forms of beauty, beauty of art, all kinds. And that beauty is the nectar of the passionate soul. The soul delights in that beauty. And nectar, of course, it's the sweetness which is in the flower, but it's also what the gods drink. And that nectar, that sweetness, keeps them immortal. So the soul responds to beauty. It's fed and nourished by beauty. And the spirit is nourished by truth, lives by truth. And the Lord, of course, is also the riches of the spiritual vast, all this vast realm of the spirit, which is continually pouring itself out on life, although we are not aware of it, pouring out in healing streams, that those gifts of the Spirit heal our indigent life. Indigent means poverty-stricken, very, very poor and needy. Somebody who is indigent, they don't have what they need. He expresses himself in the form of eternity in the hours. Eternity lured, attracted from one hour to the next. Aurobindo's written a beautiful poem called In Horis Aetanum, Eternity in the Hours. And there he's listed some special moments when he has felt eternity in the moment. You know? And in a similar way, we can sometimes have the experience of infinity just in a little space. We may be in a small spot in the wood with some little flowers, but there's a sense that this is part of something limitless and boundless. And there's the sense of immortality in the arms of death. Death comes to take us a step nearer to our immortality. So all these wonderful powers, the Mother of Light says, I embody these powers, and when I call, they come. And in this way, slowly, I'm lifting man's soul nearer to the light. So she has introduced herself as the other mothers did, and as they did, now she is going to express her sense of limitation, the problems that she faces in her work. Yes. Would you read?
Thus, slowly, I lift man's soul nearer to the light. But human mind clings to its ignorance and to its littleness in the human heart, and to its right to grieve the earthly life.
Yes. So he's changed the orders of the words here in these sentences. Human mind clings to its ignorance. It's really like that, no? And the human heart clings to its littleness. It's very rare that we really open up to something vaster. And the earthly life seems to cling to its right to grief, to sorrow and suffering. I don't know whether you've noticed it, but sometimes when life is really very, very happy and enjoyable, there's a little voice that comes and says, but it can't go on like this. There's something in us which clings to grief. You'll read?
Only when eternity takes time by the hand, only when infinity wets the finite's thought, can man be free from himself and live with God. I bring meanwhile the thoughts upon the earth. I bring back hope to the despairing heart. I give peace to the humble and the great, and shed my praise on the foolish and the rich.
The wise. Yeah, thank you. So she says, this is only going to change when eternity, when those higher powers come down. Eternity is beyond the manifestation. No? Something from beyond the manifestation, what is eternal, comes and takes time by the hand. Infinity also, it belongs beyond the manifestation. When that infinity will come and unite with the thought of what is finite, what is limited, only that will make man free from himself, from his limitations, and able to live with God. So she knows or she feels that all this is going to take a long time. But she says, meanwhile, I bring the gods, the cosmic powers, the higher powers, I bring them upon the earth. I bring back hope in the despairing heart when we think it's really all impossible. Still hope springs eternal in the human breast. She's bringing that hope. No? And I give peace. I give peace to humble people who are suffering in their poverty and their littleness. And I bring peace to the great people who have to carry such vast responsibilities. No? And my grace, I'm pouring my grace on the foolish people as well as on the wise people. Would you read?
I shall save earth, if earth consents to be saved. Then love shall at last unwounded threads her soil. Man's mind shall admit the
Sovereignty
of truth, and body bear the immense descent of God.
Mm-hmm. So she says, if earth accepts, consents to be saved, I, the Mother of Light, I'm going to save the earth. And when earth is saved, then at last love with a capital L, divine love, will be able to walk here on earth, the feet of love touching the earth, unwounded. We think that the feet of divine love, when they touch the earth, they can't help getting wounded by all our imperfections here. But that time, she says, will come when love can at last tread unwounded earth soil. And then at last, the human mind will accept that truth must rule. Sovereignty is what the ruler has. No? And most of all, body, these physical bodies will feel and experience and support the immense descent of God. She is looking forward to some great fulfillment and transformation of the whole earth nature. I show to her the figures of bright gods, and bring strength and solace to her struggling life. High things that now are only words and forms, I reveal to her in the body of their power. I am peace that steals into man's war-worn breast. Amid the rain of hell his acts create a hostel where heaven's messengers can lodge. I am charity with the kindly hands that bless. I am silence mid the noisy tramp of life. I am knowledge poring on her cosmic map. In the anomalies of the human heart, where good and evil are close bedfellows, and light is by darkness dogged at every step, where his largest knowledge is an ignorance, I am the power that labours towards the best, and works for God, and looks up towards the heights. I make even sin and error stepping stones, and all experience a long march towards light. Out of the inconscient I build consciousness, and lead through death to reach immortal life. Many are God's forms by which he grows in man. They stamp his thoughts and deeds with divinity, uplift the stature of the human clay, or slowly transmute it into heaven's gold. He is the good for which men fight and die. He is the war of right with Titan wrong. He is freedom rising deathless from her pyre. He is valor guarding still the desperate pass, or lone and erect on the shattered barricade, or a sentinel in the dangerous echoing night. He is the crown of the martyr burned in flame, and the glad resignation of the saint, and courage indifferent to the wounds of time, and the hero's might wrestling with death and fate. He is wisdom incarnate on a glorious throne, and the calm autocracy of the sages' rule. He is the high and solitary thought, aloof above the ignorant multitude. He is the prophet's voice, the sight of the seer. He is beauty, nectar of the passionate soul. He is the truth by which the spirit lives. He is the riches of the spiritual vast, poured out in healing streams on indigent life. He is eternity lured from hour to hour. He is infinity in a little space. He is immortality in the arms of death. These powers I am, and at my call they come. Thus slowly I lift man's soul nearer the light. But human mind clings to its ignorance, and to its littleness the human heart, and to its right to grief the earthly life. Only when eternity takes time by the hand, only when infinity weds the finite's thought, can man be free from himself and live with God. I bring meanwhile the gods upon the earth. I bring back hope to the despairing heart. I give peace to the humble and the great, and shed my grace on the foolish and the wise. I shall save earth, if earth consents to be saved. Then love shall at last unwounded tread earth's soil. Man's mind shall admit the sovereignty of truth, and body bear the immense descent of God.